What do you think of Facebook? I mean, because it is in 500 million people.
Yeah.
And they spend 500 billion minutes a month.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem with Facebook is it's not a business yet. I mean, if you look at it, the real graph you should look at is profitability from start of Google versus Facebook, and in particular from the day that Sergey thought of the business plan for Google versus Facebook, and then from the time that Sergey figured out how they could make money, and Facebook is like, I mean, I know $1 billion a year is something, but it's really not a lot for 500 million users, and so the thing about Facebook that's really unfortunate is that it's not quite a business yet. It's still sort of a startup searching for its business plan. It just on a big scale.
How about as a social phenomenon?
Oh, as a social phenomenon.
Do you think it's good for culture or bad for culture?
The way I see it, my judgment of it, for what it's worth, is different for different age groups. So for people who are old enough to have a life, that they already have like a job and kids, and they have old friends to connect with, Facebook, I think, is a pretty pleasant experience for them overall, because there's something they can mine that's there. For kids, for somebody who was like in their early 20s now and grew up with Facebook, I think it's a little bit more of shackle, because it's defined them too clearly and constrains them too much.
Isn't it in your book that kids are less empathetic? Yeah, is that in your book?
No, I don't think I see that exactly. What I say, I think there's a couple of problems with Facebook. One is that you're not in charge unless you're a very good geek. Like if you're a programmer, then you can use Facebook and actually kind of be in charge of what you're doing. But if you're not very geeky, you can't control the degree to which Facebook creates persistent falsities about your identity, or maybe truths that you'd like to change. So Zook's point is that he says there's more integrity if you only have one persona and it's enforced to be real. But the problem with that is getting back to Bob Dylan and maybe Mark Twain or something. Like there are a lot of people. In fact, I think most people have to reinvent themselves, and you kind of have to do some forgetting of your past, and you have to be able to have some. No, I mean it's true. And so you have to. In a way, the two extremes here, either the sort of total anonymity of like blog comments brings out bad things in people, it makes people into trolls, but also enforced consistency makes people shallow because they don't have a chance to reinvent themselves, to imagine something different. And so I think that there's a way in which there's a generation that's been kind of trapped. But then the really interesting demographic is younger than that. So what I'm really starting to see now is high school kids and some undergraduates who don't think of Facebook as like their thing versus their parents, but instead it's this thing imposed on them by older people. And for them, it's like, what is this crap? They're really upset. And that's really, really interesting to me. And I had a room full of the young ones. See, I turned 50. I'm an old guy now. I'm like, 10 years ago, I turned 40. I'm giving a talk at the computer science building on something technical, and an undergraduate at Stanford comes up and he says, "Wow, Jaron Lanier, you're still alive?" So this is me.
We'll all attest that he's still alive.
So this is me in my afterlife, I guess. But the thing is, I'm seeing teenagers now who have. It's not that they hate Facebook, but they have this skepticism, and it's this thing imposed on them. It's like a religion or something. It's like this thing, like, why is this thing imposed on me? And it's really different and really.
Are they kind of feeling like they don't have an identity unless they're kind of saying you don't have a Facebook profile, and they're kind of weirded out by that? Or?
Well, yeah, because it's this thing you have to do. Like anybody who's 16 who's told you have to do this. How do you feel about it? So those are the interesting ones to watch.
That's cool.
Those
Short
are really
Facebook.